Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you are. I'm Phil Song, a clean energy consultant of Asian Development Bank. I'm the moderator of this deep dive workshop organized by Korean agency with a team of renewable energy-based sector coupling. Let me now open the workshop by inviting Mr. Youngman Woo, Director General of Korea Energy Agency, for his opening remarks. Mr. Woo, over to you, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Youngman Woo, Director General of Korea Energy Agency. Nice to meet you all. On behalf of Korea Energy Agency, I would like to express our warm greetings and welcoming to all participants for this event. I am very pleased to attend this special Asia Clean Energy Forum 2022 and deep dive workshop. Today, we are here to talk about sector coupling based on renewable energy. Energy transition to clean energy is very important to respond to climate change and reduce greenhouse gas. Thus, increasing the share of renewable energy is required for resilient future. Meanwhile, the concept of sector coupling is being applied across the world with each particular focus on increased use of renewable electricity in all energy consuming sectors, including industry, agriculture, transportation, and residential heating and cooling through integration of energy supply and consumption. Therefore, we would like to share the current status, plan, and technology of sector coupling in Korea, Mongolia, and Iran. I hope we could learn about sector coupling, which can respond to climate change and expand clean energy for low carbon and resilient future, starting from this DDW. Today, I also hope everyone could find other useful information through ASEP 2022 and deep dive workshop. For last, I look forward to all countries to overcome COVID-19 and meet you all in offline ASEP next year. I wish you will stay in safe and good now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woo, for your warm welcome to the workshop. I'd like to join him in welcoming all participants to this workshop that aims to learn more about the sector coupling based on renewable energy and showcase different sector coupling business models and also various innovations in this field. As we all know, many countries have recently enhanced their commitment to further reduce the greenhouse gas emissions to reach carbon neutrality by middle of this century, following the outcome of COP26. And renewable energy will no doubt take a major role in this journey to low carbon energy transition. I'm quite pleased to let you know that we are able to bring in excellent speakers to this workshop who will share their insights, knowledge, and experience in sector coupling, and I look forward to learning from them. I would also appreciate active engagement of all participants and request the audience to type their questions in the box so that I can raise them to the speakers during the Q&A session that will take place towards the end of this workshop. Without further ado, let me now invite the first speaker, Dr. Tae-il Lee of Korea Energy Economic Institute, which is a leading energy research institute in Korea. Dr. Lee is a key research fellow in this institute with the best experience in electricity, hydrogen, and heat sector coupling, and his recent work includes 2 reports produced jointly by Korea Energy Economics Institute and the International Energy Agency on reforming Korea's electricity market for net zero and the Korea Electricity Security Review. Dr. Lee also holds several government advisory positions in the energy committees in Korea. Dr. Lee received a PhD degree from the Arizona State University in financial economics. Dr. Lee, over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tae Lee from Korea Energy Economics Institutes. I already share my screen. Could you come up my screen? Okay. Okay, I'm going to do a presentation on low level sector coupling for net zero in Korea. Thank you for the opportunity to my presentation today. First, I would like to explain the concept of sector coupling, which is essential for net zero, and then explain the role of sector coupling in Korea. Okay. For net zero in Korea, by 2050, Korea should make the greenhouse gas emission zero. Now, the carbon emission in Korea is 700 million tons, and it's very challenging for Korea to drop it to zero. Then how to deliver this goal? The electrification is the key to the carbon neutrality, because the electricity supply will be integrated and centered around the renewable energy. And then additionally, the Korea expects to spend almost twice on electricity in 2050. So far, our energy system has been centered around the conventional upstream sector like oil and gas, and the energy from the primary energy supply was converted into final energy, and then the final energy was delivered to the final consumer, such as building and industry and the transportation. The final consumer can also directly receive the primary energy in the form of oil and gas. So this energy system can be sectorized in various ways. Here, I suggest two concepts. From the energy sector perspective, every energy sources, including oil and gas, it has its own sector. These energy sources are physically and conceptually separated. So the price of each energy source has been determined from its own market. And as for the economic sector perspective, there are two basic components of economy, the supply and demand. So here, the supply of the primary and final energy is supply side, and the building, transportation, and industry are on the demand side. When we talk about the sector coupling of energy system, the first thing we can think about is energy sector coupling. The traditional energy sector has one-way flow from primary energy to electricity and heat. But renewable energy produces electricity without fossil fuel primary energy. So here, this can make the energy system flow in opposite direction. That is the start point of energy sector coupling. Here we can use P2G technology to send the electricity back to the gas sector, such as hydrogen, through the water electrolysis. So if we think about the energy circulation between this electricity and hydrogen and just to iterate it, then more iteration just to make more loss. But renewable energy has significant meaning in sector coupling. For example, when we face the electricity surplus, sector coupling can store renewable energy in the form of a heat or gas. There are many types of energy storage system, like a battery storage and pumped hydro. The battery storage, battery can store the energy into the form of chemical energy. And the P2G store energy in the form of hydrogen. The conventional pumped water generation store the energy as a potential energy. And also the captured carbon can be stored and converted to the methane with the hydrogen. This is also included in the P2G concept. So the captured carbon can combine with the hydrogen to produce carbon neutral methane. And it's possible to capture the carbon dioxide from the burning methane again to make a carbon neutral methane. The renewable energy has also influenced the integration of economic sector. The energy self-sufficiency was the kind of a concept with installing renewable energy in the demand sector. Considering that the renewable energy has started with a concept of distributed resource concept. So self-sufficiency in power is kind of a most ideal case. But as renewable energy is dependent on weather condition, there are cases in which electricity that does not match the consumption. And this can make excess electricity that cannot be used. And in this case, the energy prosumer can sell the remaining electricity near the point of consumption. If we go on one step further, the grid support is also possible by consuming or supplying or storing electricity on the grid. So this under economic sector coupling, the V2G, the vehicle to grid, will be the key technology in the future. This is because electric vehicle have high quality and large capacity battery, which can absorb the surplus of power generated from grid and discharge when it's necessary. So this whole process is kind of sector coupling. Its sector coupling include these energy sector coupling and economic sector coupling. And Germany is most active country in this sector coupling concept. In Europe, more than 40% of all P2G project is being driven by Germany. Germany is active in sector coupling for two reasons. The first one is the Germany want to observe variable energy, VER, through the sector coupling. As of 2019, 43% of power generated in Germany were from new and renewable energy. Among them, 28% of energy was from solar and wind. 28%, almost 30% of energy is from solar and wind. It is difficult to observe more renewable in the current system because they need more grid and more flexible resources. So in Germany, the electricity that generated from the North Sea, here you can see the North Sea has a lot of the huge size of wind farm. They need to transfer the south part to transfer that the electricity to the south part of the country, but that was not been easy. So although the Germany invested a lot for the grid, there is not enough grid in place to accommodate all the growing renewable energies. That is why they create a lot of projects like storing energy into the form of hydrogen or producing methane from the hydrogen. And Germany is has one more reason to invest into a lot of projects of sector coupling. Germany is one of the country with the highest target for the greenhouse gas reduction. So Germany has actively supplied the renewable energy, but the effect of reducing greenhouse gas emission with this kind of renewable energy has been offset by phase out nuclear power. So you can see that Germany has fairly high consumption, and then one other thing is Germany has a high consumption of this gas. why is okay? This green is gas. It's twice level of the Korea because Germany is very cold. They use a lot of heat source from the gas. So it will not be easy to replace all the natural gas with renewable energy. That's why Germany is taking the P2G method to create carbon neutral energy source. Then does Korea need sector coupling? The Korea can use the sector coupling to absorb solar wind and achieve decarbonization like Germany. Same. However, Korea is different from Europe. So Korea operates the electricity system without interconnection. That means that we have no other way to supply electricity if there is problem with the electricity system until now. So energy security has been defined so far. Energy security has been defined as a stable supply of primary energy, but now the electricity security is more important because we don't have interconnection to, for flexibility, and there is a lot of rigid the generation, such as nuclear and renewable energy. So KEA, my institutes have electricity security report last year in collaboration with IEA, because Korea operate the power system without interconnection, like I said. Sector coupling is required not only for carbon neutrality, but also for the electricity security. It is desirable to see the increase in renewable energy, but in the long term, the seasonal mismatch of electricity supply and the demand will show up. Then that's why sector coupling such as P2G and P2H are essential for the stable electricity system operation to convert excess supply of renewable energy into the other energy form. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to see the increase in renewable energy for the better environment, but we have to pay attention to power system stability. So, sorry, let's look at the impact of increase in renewable energy supply on power system from two perspectives. One is the size of volatility, that is uncontrollable or unpredictable shock. And the other one is the robustness of the system, which measures how well it can withstand volatility or external shock. The maintaining constant salt concentration is important if you have tropical fish in a tank. I'm making an example. Like power system need to keep the constant frequency and voltage. It's the same. If you have tropical fish, you have to keep the constant salt rate in the water. It's the same. And the volatility is kind of a amount of salt you might drop into the tank. And the robustness, you can think about the size of the tank. So if you drop a little bit of salt, if the tank size is big enough, there is no kind of certain effect on the salt concentration. But if the tank size is small, the salt, if there is a lot of salt, it will just to change a lot of their weight ratio. So that the size of fish tank can be compared to the size of a synchronous generator in the power system. So increase in renewable energy reduce the conventional synchronous power generator in the system, because the inverter-based renewable energy takes a lot of place. And then it will also increase the volatility of a salt amount, because the renewable energy have a lot of volatility. To operate the electric system more stably, the curtailment of renewable energy sometimes happens, because if there is a surplus of power, that could lead to dangerous situation. So in the case of the island, the ratio of inverter-based non-synchronous generator is limited to the maximum rate of 65%. So if there is more than 65% of inverter-based generator, then they will be just cut, even if there is no supply and demand issue. Yeah, so island keep the size of fish tank big enough. In Jeju Island, we already see the curtailment a lot in spring and fall. Jeju started to curtail renewable energy in 2015, which shows 3 times of a curtailment event. And then from 2019, you can see there's a lot of renewable energy increased significantly. So now there's a lot of curtailment of renewable energy too. You can see in the graph here. If renewable energy is more than certain level, the excess power from the renewable will be cut. You can also imagine the salt in a cup of water. I like the water example. If the water in the cup is already saturated, then adding additional salt does not dissolve and just sink. The sinking of the salt, you can think about the curtailment. Renewable energy that cannot be absorbed into the system directly lead to the curtailment. Therefore, to increase the system acceptability of renewable energy, it is necessary to improve the water condition to more soluble and then create system that allow renewable energy to dissolve more easily. Sector coupling can be seen as one of the representative methods to improve energy system condition. Okay, I'll skip this one. And then so P2G business model on the electricity system can be operated in various forms. Most of the projects currently underway are off-grid. And then that's P2G operated as a hydrogen production facility without access to the grid. It's most accessible option. In the long term, it's possible to have mass hydrogen production with the big wind farm. Another business model is distributed energy resource model. It can be observed variability of renewable energy at the distribution stage, but it does not have economy of scale. So we need it's hard to get the economic perspective. So it is also necessary to consider the system operation level business model for the scale. Even if the distributed energy resource minimize the volatility from the renewable, but centralized operation is required because to balance the supply and demand across the region. And then, okay. It is very important to secure the flexible resources. So far, the battery and pump to water generation has been used for the short-term flexibility, but it's important to respond to the seasonal characteristic of energy supply. That's why people talk about the P2G with the underground gas storage. It's possible in Europe because they have a strong underground structure. But in Korea, it costs a lot to store hydrogen. So industry may need to be able to consume hydrogen directly without storing process, and then just to adjust to the amount of import of hydrogen to match the balance between supply and demand of hydrogen. By the way, Korea already reduced the power output at the nuclear power plant during the holidays. Yeah, and then P2G can also serve the ancillary service in the grid, not only just to provide their mass of the electricity, they can just adjust to the frequency too. Okay, this is the I'm learning about time, so I will skip the analysis part over here. But as you can see, in the summer and the winter, there is no, as you can see here, as you can see, the summer and winter, there is no curtailment, even though there is a lot of renewable. But in the spring and fall, there's a lot of curtailment. That's because in the spring, at daytime and nighttime, the renewable and the must run already are higher than demand. So in the daytime, they have to store, and the nighttime, they still need to store. In the summer, and at the daytime, you can store the energy, but you can discharge it at the nighttime. So that kind of a difference make this kind of curtailment analysis. Okay. Yeah, this is the last point. This is a graph from the IEA. The large scale network to smooth seasonal variability is being discussed by IEA, and that is from phase 5, which means the renewable energy supply reach 50 to 60%. But in phase 2, IEA recommended interconnection between countries, but that's difficult to achieve in Korea. Then we will have to prepare every other tools to secure the power system. One of them is a sector coupling. So, yeah, I draw the roadmap for sector coupling. In the short term, we focus the localized sector coupling. In the long term, we have to think about the system-wide sector coupling. Okay, thank you for your attention. I'll take some question if you have at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your insightful presentation on what sector coupling is all about with different models in Germany and Korea. Obviously, these are quite advanced. One important point that I take from your presentation is that application of sector coupling has to be done considering the specific country context. This advanced sector coupling system may not be applicable to some of the developing countries, but I mean, they can learn from these business models, and then they can reflect this in their roadmap for sector coupling. So I think one important thing is that each country should apply the sector coupling concept differently based on their specific conditions. With this, let me now introduce the next speaker, Ms. Joo-hee Lee. She is a research and overseas project coordinator at Renewable, an engineering consulting firm in Korea. She was involved in a number of energy consulting assignments related to climate change response and renewable energy in Korea and overseas, including Indonesia and Cambodia. She has a master's degree in management and international studies from Handong Global University in Korea. Ms. Joo-hee Lee, over to you, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Joo-hee Lee, and I'm a researcher and overseas project coordinator of Renewable, which is a climate change solution and electric mobility ecosystem provider based in South Korea. First of all, thank you very much for taking your time, and thank you for giving me this chance to present Zero Carbon Tour at this deep dive workshop. Today, I'd like to share our Zero Carbon Tour as a case of renewable energy-based sector coupling, a power to mobility project. Before we go any further, allow me to briefly go over the climate change issue because it is the main reason why we're doing our project. Here I want to share a graph with you which shows how carbon dioxide has been increased and very negative effects in many different aspects. On this graph, we can see that the amount of CO2 emission is keep going up since 1940. It started with around 5 tons of CO2 in 1940s, and it by 2018, it reached 36.5 tons of CO2. The amount of CO2 continued to rise even during the COVID-19 lockdown. One thing that we need to keep our eyes on is that since 1970s, the number of world natural catastrophe has been increased, and the advent of global epidemic, just like COVID-19, it's been more frequent recently, and more CO2 emission cause the rise of global land ocean temperature, and it brings about serious problems like catastrophe and those epidemic issues. So to combat against this global warming climate change issue, a goal of net zero emission by 2050 has been set as the global target. And to do so, it is estimated that there must be more than $2 trillion per year investments is needed in CO2 market at global scale. And based on this backdrop, global backdrop, we have come up with a zero carbon tour model. And now, before we dive into our P2M model, zero carbon tour, let us check the Siem Reap tourism status to help you understand our project site, Siem Reap, better. So in Cambodia, tourism is actually one of the most important industries. And of course, the Angkor complex in Siem Reap is part of the main reasons. However, due to the COVID-19 lockdown and pandemic issue, the tourism has been significantly impacted, and more than 80% was dropped in 2020. And not only the pandemic issue, but because the tour program and the reason and activities have been simple and kind of the same for years, the number of visitors were declining for the last few years. So to solve this problem, we have come up with the zero carbon tour at Angkor complex. Zero carbon tour is a tour program where tourists can travel around the Angkor complex, riding solar charged e-mobility electric scooters. As the tourists ride the renewable energy-based electric scooters, the CO2 emissions from transportation can be minimized. And with this zero carbon tour, we'll also provide different activities, including some historical site storytelling programs or climate change awareness programs, or even Korean culture programs, etc., so that the tourists can enjoy this trip and have meaningful experience. And now let us see the flow of zero carbon tour more in detail to understand why the zero carbon tour is a power to mobility model and where the sector coupling happens. So as I have explained before, zero carbon tour is a tour program and business model using electric vehicles. And our vehicles are charged at this Popul station, which is located in Siem Reap. And in this Popul station, we installed rooftop solar PV and building integrated photovoltaics and energy storage system. The e-scooters, electric scooters, are charged 100% from the station's rooftop PV, and as tourists ride this vehicles, CO2 can be reduced. So it is where the sector coupling happens, and P2M model is implemented. And in addition, as Siem Reap is famous for Angkor Wat complex and famous and popular tourist spot, we integrated this P2M model with a low carbon business model. And next, I'll go over each component of zero carbon tour more in detail. So the very first component is this Popul station, which we just opened at the end of last month in Siem Reap. It is sort of like a base camp for zero carbon tour. As you can see, this rooftop PV and BIPV are installed here, and the tourists can rent e-scooters and charge them from this charging station. Here, the capacity of this rooftop PV is 42.5 kilowatt peak, and around 150 kilowatt hours power can be generated from here. And from this BIPV, the capacity is 2.85 kilowatt peak, and around 10 kilowatt hours can be generated. So with this amount, we estimate that all our vehicles can be charged and ran by this renewable energy-based electricity. And this Papul station will also be used as a rest area for, and also the programs and activity spots where tourists can enjoy historical programs or K-culture programs or etc. So we just opened this Papul station in the downtown Siem Reap as part of our first step or first phase of this project. What we're planning to do next is to build this Papul mobile stations throughout the city so that the tourists can have easier access to the charging infrastructure. And this mobile e-stations will also be installed with the solar panels to promote the low carbon mobility and P2M models. And from the perspective of tourists, Papul tour goes like this. They make a reservation first on our website or our application. Then they will have an introduction program at the Papul station and rent scooters, electric scooters, and have a refreshing moment riding vehicles. And here, the carbon dioxide reduced from riding the scooters will be monitored and calculated and registered on this voluntary carbon credit trading platform in Korea. And the profit made from this selling the credits and this platform will be given as a reward to those tourists again. So it's kind of like a positive circular model. It's the tour map and program and Angkor complex, which we have developed. And also some pictures our staffs took while they did test driving in Angkor Wat. Very beautiful and gorgeous sceneries from Angkor Wat complex. The zero carbon tourists can make reservation from this website and check the tour course. And this is the application we have come up with for Papul Tour. And actually it is available both on Google Play Store and App Store now. And this is the Very Words e-mobility technology portfolio. So the renewable-based power is supplied to our electric vehicles through these e-stations and e-mobile stations. And it is where the sector coupling and power to mobility model are implemented. And now we're also trying to include more vehicle models, different types of models like cargo and tricycles and also rickshaws to provide, to help those tourists have more various experience and enjoy their trips. Yeah, so this is the mobile e-station we're planning to install throughout the city in the phase 2. This station can be installed independently and even in a small space, it can be installed. So we believe that as we expand this stations model, the charging infrastructure can be spread more easily and promote the power to mobility model. And our P2M model, which I just showed you, is actually part of our big picture. I'd like to briefly share the whole picture of this e-mobility ecosystem. We believe that as the number of electric mobility rise, the battery waste issues needs to be considered as well. And to to take care of this battery issues, we have come up with this battery reuse models. So it is using the batteries under 80% or 70% of efficiency for this solar home grid system, so that those residents in the off-grid area can be provided with electricity, and also this mobile station model. And after this phase, those batteries that are like real waste, those will be sent to this recycling center, yeah, will be used for producing the batteries again. So with the solutions, we can implement the whole e-mobility ecosystem. And as we carry out this project and expand our business model, it brings benefits to various entities in different sectors. First, the renewable energy-based e-mobility system will reduce the, obviously it will reduce the carbon emission in the transportation sector, and also result in renewable energy credit. So this credit can be traded on this platform, a volunteer carbon credit market in Korea, and used by those companies which wants to achieve the carbon neutrality but have not really good way to do so. Those credits can be used by these companies to achieve those carbon neutrality. And the economic benefit made from selling the credit to this company, they can be given back to those tourists, to those users again, so that, and to encourage them to do more low carbon activities. And I would like to wrap up my presentation with Berryworld's business model. We plan to this zero carbon tour model pairing with renewable energy based mobility system and the battery recycling process in the future. And the CO2 credit and renewable energy credit made from here will be sold to the companies to help them achieve carbon neutrality in the industry sector. And by involving everyone in this mutually benefited low carbon business model, we believe we can provide innovative integrated solutions to achieve low carbon and resilient future. Thank you very much for your attention to the Zero Carbon Tour, a part to mobility system case in Siem Reap, Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee, for your very interesting presentation on this innovative small project. It is going to reduce carbon footprint by using e-scooters. Not only that, it will introduce K-culture and also provide free drink for tourists, which will attract more tourists. This is a small project, but I think that even big one can start from a small one, and that this project can be easily replicated elsewhere in Cambodia or beyond. Thank you very much for your presentation. I received a question on your presentation, but I will raise a question towards the end of the workshop. Now, let me introduce the next speaker, Mr. T. Ank Saihan. Mr. Ank Saihan is an experienced and competent electrical and automation engineer with a comprehensive knowledge in designing, developing, and maintaining electrical systems, focusing on safety, reliability, availability, quality, and sustainability. He also has a deep understanding in power system, grid codes, safety rules, and regulations. He is a part of the operation team of a 50 megawatt circuit wind farm in Mongolia that supplies electricity to the national grid. He's working on the field, so I think that we can learn from the experience from the field. Dr. Ank Saihan.
Yes. Okay. So can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Ing Se-han. I am the operation manager of Clean Energy LLC, which company is the first 50 megawatts wind farm in Mongolia and working for 15 years in the energy sector. And today I'm going to talk about the Mongolian renewable projects and sector coupling. And I will begin by outlining Mongolian energy system and then go to renewable energy projects. And finally, I will go on to the challenges and the solution. Well, the Mongolian energy system is divided into 5 systems, and then Mongolia 330 zones, and the 4 cities are supplied with electricity through the 5 systems, and central and west, and east and south, and Alta-West energy system. And our installed total capacity is 1,544 megawatts. And from that, coal heating power plants, we generate 1,264 megawatts, 82%. And from the wind, we have 155 megawatts, around 10%. And from the solar, we 90 megawatt capacity of 5.8%. And from the hydro, 26 megawatts and 1.7%. And from the diesel, we just 8 megawatt, and it takes 0.6% of our installed capacity. For the consumption in 2021, we generated from the local generators from the 7,913.65 million kilowatt hours, and we imported the 1,867.14 million kilowatt hours from Russia and China. And we import electricity from the Russia around 300 million kilowatt hours for purpose of to cover the needed electricity during the under generation from the local generators. And for the China, we import electricity from the China for purpose of to supply power to a big copper mining name is Ayutthaya. Okay, now I will shift to potential of the renewable energy in Mongolia. And based by Professor Kurokawa, in the Mongolian Gobi Desert has 270 to 300 sunny days. And by the JEDCO study, and we can install the solar power plants with capacity of 1.9 terawatt power. And now just we are utilizing 100 megawatt of the potential. And for the wind, we have a very good source, and we can install the wind farms with capacity of 1.1 terawatt power. And now just we are utilizing the 155 megawatt of the potential. And for the hydropower plant, we do not have a higher potential for the hydropower plants, but we can install and establish the hydropower plant with capacity of 1.1 gigawatt. And now we are just utilizing the very small share of it, and it's just around 0.023 gigawatt of this potential. Okay, now I will speak on the current renewable projects. And this graph shows you guys the share of electricity production from the coal and renewable energy. And the Mongolian heritage living in rural area. And since 2007, the Mongolian government and the World Bank has started the project for heritage to have the electricity from the solar panels. And also there's in October 2008 that Mongolian forced Turgon hydropower plant construction and installation is completed, and they started its operation. And also the June 2013, and the Mongolian fourth wind farm was in operation. And if we see the graph that from the 2007, the renewable energy generators are increased, and other side, the share of the electricity production from the coal heating power plants are reducing. And from the 1685 to 2007, there were only CHPs and diesel generators. And now if we see that our trend, we are going to parallel to the other countries' trend. And it's look very similar with the other countries' trend. As countries such as China, Japan, and USA, and Russia, and South Korea. And right now, by the May 2022, we have 3 wind farms and 9 solar power stations. And also there's a small off-grid and the grid-connected mini solar power system, and the total capacity is 1.5 megawatt. And for the big renewable generators, we take 245 megawatt of the installed capacity. And next is the planet renewable projects. And the national energy sector development policy is targeted to 20% of share of renewable energy in 2020 and 30% in 2030. And under the Paris Agreement, we are obligated to reducing CO2 by the 22.7% and by 2030. And during the Glasgow CO2 26, the Mongolian president announced that there is opportunity to reducing CO2 by 27.2% by 2030. And that means that our system electricity is increases by 6% per year. And we are expecting to reach the 3,000 megawatt in 2030. And it means that we still need to install and establish the renewable energy projects with the capacity of 614 megawatts. Therefore, the government planned some of projects in the waste energy system, and the ADB and the Mongolian government is planned the 10 projects in the waste energy sector here. And now 3 of them is in operation. And the total installed capacity would be 40.5 megawatt. And also would be a battery energy storage system, 2.6 megawatt hours. After this project, the government will also, meanwhile, the government planned to establish the hydropower plant, Renewable, 90 megawatts. And after this project, the waste energy sector can supply energy by 100% from the domestic generators. Also, there is a projects from the private sectors, and from the private sector, 3 wind farms and 8 solar power plants are planned in the central grid system. And the total installed capacity would be 240 megawatts. And these projects will be in operation from 2022 to 2025. And for the Renewable hydropower plant, it will be planned and it will be in operation from the 2027. And this is for the projects which are planned in the waste energy sector, which are implemented by the ADB and the Mongolian government. Now I will talk about sector coupling. Sector coupling is very important for the renewable energy system. Due to low demand, that we are just utilizing 80 to 90% of the existing renewable energy facilities outputs. And it means that we are curtailing that and cannot utilizing the 10 to 20% of this operating renewable energy projects output. And so such as amount of clean energy is being curtailed and wasted. Therefore, Mongolian government and the private sector working together and developing the renewable projects. And government is established now. Ulaanbaatar city is now to 1.2 million cars and 492 electric vehicles, and we have 8 stations for charge them. And these electric cars spend $2 for 100 kilometers. And if we compare it to the hybrid cars, then it's 4 times cheaper. And if we compare with the petrol car, this is 6 times cheaper. And because of during the low demand, the Mongolian grid can supply electricity by 4 cents per kilowatt hour. This is a feature of our electrical system. Because Mongolia hasn't a responsive of the power plants, and we cannot regulate the frequency by ourselves. And then during the nighttime, we could build the renewable energy projects. And for the electric buses that the Mongolian government has just started and testing the electric buses in Ulaanbaatar city. And now we have 35 electric buses and established 2 stations for them. And there's electric buses saves $90 to $100 per day. And we see that and the government is planning to increase that amount of number of these electric buses. And now that the existing hour potential can charge the 20% of the 1.2 million cars. That is a very good news for the consumers and users. And also I would like to speak about our farms. And the farms also establishing the solar power panels for or supply the electricity and for heating their greenhouse. It was a challenge for us to plant the vegetables during the winter time because of due to cold temperature. And now the farms have solar panels, and they are using the solar panels for the heating, and then our greenhouse is developed from the 3-season greenhouse to 4 seasons greenhouse. Also, the excess electricity can be delivered to the grid. Mongolian government has made a regulation for the households, also for households, and they can have small capacity of renewable generators, and then they can supply and cover the needed electricity by the renewable energy. And also they can deliver the excess electricity to the grid. And also I would like to speak to the Mongolian energy sector. And the West energy system has established 3.6 megawatt battery energy system storage in the Leicester city of the Zahombo province. And one important project is we don't have responsive power plants, and the Mongolian government and the ADB are planning to establish the 80 megawatt, 200 megawatt hours of battery energy storage in the central grid. And during the low our generation, we will charge this battery energy storage system, and then will be use back this battery energy storage system during the under generation and for the regulative power frequency. And this will be a very good opportunity to use that our existing renewable generation output by 100%, and also it will be support for us to develop other renewable energy projects in the future. For another project I would like to speak, it is the hydrogen production. And Mongolia just started their research work on the development of hydrogen production and the use of hydrogen in energy supply. From the government side, they are going to and the plan to protect the tax and legal environment for the international investors. And also they are planning the step-by-step training for national personnel for construction and operation hydrogen plants energy source. And Mongolia has a high potential to develop the renewable energy, as well as wind and the solar. And so we have a very big opportunity to develop the clean energy in the Asia. Also, Mongolia is entered the North Asian supergrid. According to this project, we can increase and scale up our renewable energy projects. This project can transmit electricity from the Mongolia through the China to Korea and Japan. And also we can supply the electricity to there, and also we are establishing the hydrogen factories. This will make our worlds more green and more clean. And thank you for attention. And I would like to answer the question if you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enki-Sai-Han, for your presentation and overview of energy sector in Mongolia with some sector coupling projects that are in consideration. Mongolia has a huge potential for renewable energy development. The sunny days are 200, almost 300 days a year. And solar installation level is very high. And moreover, you have no problem with acquiring land for solar energy development. Similarly, you have huge potential for development of other renewable energy like wind and hydropower. Unfortunately, the country has not harnessed the potential yet. At the moment, the most of the energy supply is from coal. So for the benefit of the country, the development of solar energy potential has to be done, not only to decarbonize the energy system, but also address the huge pollution issues, particularly in Ulaanbaatar. And I'm very glad to know the increased commitment of the government of Mongolia by increasing the target for carbon emission reductions from 22.7% to 27.2% by 2030. This is a very good sign. With this, now let me invite the last but not least speaker, Ms. Arina Anisi. She is an analyst in International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA, where she worked since 2017. Prior to joining IRENA, she worked as an energy analyst at PSR Energy Consulting and Analytics, a Brazilian-based consulting firm. She has extensive experience in developing global and regional analysis of innovations for the energy transition based on renewable energy, electrification, and the end user sectors with the renewables, power sector analysis, and stakeholder engagement. She's an industrial engineer and holds a Master of Science degree in electric power systems from Comillas University in Madrid, and also Master of Science degree in network industries and digital economy from Paris Sud University. Ms. Anisi, over to you, please.
Hello, I hope you hear me well. Perfect, thank you. Yes, sure. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to present to this event. And also thanks a lot for the very interesting presentation of previous speakers. So I will try in these 20 minutes to give you an overview of our work in International Renewable Energy Agency about innovation and innovation landscape for smart electrification of end-use sector. Starting from a very broad and big picture, I would say that IRENA analysis suggests that we have solutions, technological solution to meet Paris Agreement and to avoid 36.9 gigaton of CO2 emission in 2050. And if we look at the technological solution that we have, 90% of all involves renewable energy and energy efficiency. 25% it's renewables used in power systems, 25% energy efficiency, 20% it's electrification of end-use sectors using renewable electricity also from the power sector, 10% are green hydrogen solutions, and the rest it's carbon capture, CO2 carbon and storage based solution. The good news is that renewable based electricity is already the cheapest power option in most of the region. Here we have the cost of solar PVs, concentrated solar power, onshore wind and offshore wind over the last 10 years. And we see that the cost reduced tremendously, 85% in the case of solar photovoltaic, 65% in the case of onshore wind. That makes them, in some region, even less expensive than conventional fossil fuel range cost that you can see in gray here. So we have new, cheap, available renewable technologies for decreasing emissions. Now, the challenge is that we need to increase the share of variable renewable energy in our power system. And this graph shows the historical progress of VRE share generation globally, when we see that today we are more or less at 10% of wind and solar power in our systems. And to meet Paris Agreement, we have to reach almost 61% by 2050. With current policies in place and how we are heading, we will reach just 36. So much more is need to be done in this sense to integrate more renewables in our power system, 61% by 2050, according to ARENA analysis. This technology, it's available, it's cheap, but we all know it's variable and uncertain, and this produces a lot of challenges for the power system. So we have been mapping and we have been looking at what are the innovations that can help integrate high share of solar and wind in power systems, and ultimately have an increasingly flexible power system, because this is what we need, a more flexible power system to back up the variable generation. And we see that there are many enabling technologies emerging, such as battery storage, electric vehicles, digital technologies, also hydrogen, that can provide more flexibility in the system. However, innovation goes beyond technology. And we see that innovative business models are very important, with the emergence on aggregators, peer-to-peer electricity trading, and also innovation market design is needed, and new regulation in the system that could encourage flexible behavior of existing assets, empowering consumers. And last but not least, innovation in system operation. The system itself is changing, it's becoming more decentralized. The end-use sectors are electrified, so new ways to operate the system are needed. So we need innovation in all these dimensions to have real on-the-ground solution that could help integrate more renewables in the system. We call this at ARENA systemic innovation. We have identified a list of 30 key innovations in this dimension: technology, business models, market design, system operation. They are all included in our flagship report, Innovation Landscape for a Renewable Power Future, that you can also find online at free of charge. If you're more interested to go more in depth in each of the innovation, we also have a separate brief of that. So a wealth of information you can find on our website on these 30 key innovations for solar and wind PV integration. But what I will focus mostly today is to give you a broad overview of the three innovation trends. So there are many innovations happening in the system, that is clear, but the power system is evolving towards more flexible power system with three main innovation trends. Electrification is becoming more decentralized and more digitalized. Electrification of end-use sector, it's basically emerging to maintain value and avoid curtailment of variable renewable electricity, while also helping decarbonize other sectors. So taking advantage of the cheap available electricity in power systems, we can use this to decarbonize other sectors with electric vehicles, with heat pumps, also green hydrogen. The system is also becoming more decentralized with the increasing deployment of distributed energy resources. This turns consumer into active participant, fostering demand side management, more flexibility also from the demand side. And also with this increased complexity in the power system, digital technologies become key because they can enable faster response, better management of assets, only by connecting devices, collecting data, monitoring and control, better visibility on the system, and faster response. So let's talk more about on electrification of end-use sector today and sector coupling and how where we stand today, what we need to do in that more to decarbonize end-use sectors. And also, according also to a flagship analysis that was released earlier this year, we see that the share of direct electricity in final energy consumption today, it's only 21%, and we need much more than that by 2050 to be aligned with Paris Agreement. We need to reach 50%. So much more sector coupling, much more use of direct electricity in end-use sectors. We have to increase the use of direct electricity in the industry sector from 26% to 28%, in buildings for 32% to 56%, and in transport sector from only 1% to 9% by 2030, these numbers. What does it mean? It means more heat pumps also for industry, more electric cars on the road, from 18 million roughly today globally in 2030 to almost 400 million, and more than almost 2 billion in 2050. And also heat pumps in buildings. So much more deployment of these technologies. But all these technologies and all these electric vehicles, heat pumps, also production of green hydrogen would increase a lot the demand for the power system as well. So we need to do it smart. And this is what we call smart electrification of end-use sector. Why smart? Because uncontrolled and simultaneous charging of electric vehicles, of heat pumps, lead to increase in peak demand and frequent congestions in distribution grids. And this would require additional investments in grid infrastructure, additional investment in generation capacity, and could limit the integration of solar and PV wind. So this could be a very big burden for the power system ultimately. Why we have to do it smart to avoid all these things? What is smart electrification? Smart electrification basically means adapting the electricity use to the needs of the end-use sectors and to the users, but also taking into account the conditions of the power system. Let's say in the case of electric vehicles, to charge them smartly, smart charging. In the case of heat pump, to optimize the use of heat pumps according also to the needs of the power system, but not at the expense of the comfort of the users, of course. So we have been doing analysis in this sense. Let's stop a bit on the mobility sector and smart electrification of mobility sector and smart charging. We are also analyzing the innovations that are needed to have a smart electrification of mobility sector. Again, we see that systemic innovation approach is key here. Indeed, we need innovation in technologies. We need electric vehicles on the road. We need good batteries. We need charging stations, digital technologies that connect the user, the drivers, the power grid. But also innovation in market design and regulation is key, especially for the smart charging approach. We need electricity tariffs that could send the right signals to the chargers to incentivize the users, the drivers to charge the car when electricity is cheaper, and therefore when power sector it's not at its peak demand. There are also opportunities to provide ancillary services to the grid from electric vehicles. So we need to enable this. For this, also, we need innovations in business models, aggregators, energy as a service, also mobility as a service, and also we need to innovate in how we plan for this, not only operate, but also plan. To increase much more the cross-sectoral cooperation, the cooperation between the power system and the transport system, to increase the transparency of grid data, to enable the decision-making of the location of the charging point, and for the power system side to manage better the EV load. So this is a list of innovation that we are also putting together to show that all this has to come together to enable a smart electrification of mobility sector. And the potential of flexibility from mobility sector for the power system, it's huge, because we see in our analysis as well that by 2050, the storage capacity that we will have from the batteries coming from electric vehicles, it's much larger than from the stationary batteries. Like we have here 50 terawatt hour of storage capacity coming from only the passenger cars, from the batteries in the passenger cars only, while the utility scale stationary batteries and behind the meter, the centralized stationary batteries are around 15 terawatt hour. So a lot of the battery bank of the future would be in electric vehicles. They are passenger cars, especially, they are almost 90% of the time not moving, like stationary. And if they are connected to the grid, they can provide a great flexibility potential to the grid as well, and to use the battery in the car to provide flexible services to the system. Let me show you an example, a real example of how important it is to go smart and to try to charge this vehicle in a smart way comparing to non-controlled way. And we have been in contact, for example, with the distribution system operator in Hamburg. Hamburg is a city in Germany that has a lot of electric vehicles on the road already. It's the most deployment probably in Germany. And they are telling us that they have been doing an assessment, and at 90% EV share, so roughly 60,000 electric vehicle share on the road, could cause bottlenecks in 50% of the feeders in the city's distribution network. And this would lead to grid reinforcements that will cost roughly 20 million euros according to their estimations. However, they also have been in discussions with Siemens, a digital company, for smart digital solutions. And smart digital solution means that all charging points need to be visible to the distribution system operator, and the distribution system operator have real-time communication with all these charging points and can reduce charging points loads if the grid is over it's congestion. And only by doing this decrease simultaneity and doing real-time communication and reduce a little bit the charging loads of the cars will defer grid reinforcement. And this smart digital solution would only cost 2 million euros to implement all these digital technologies to increase visibility and control. So we see that a smart solution, it's 10 times less expensive, cheaper than the traditional grid reinforcement solution that is needed in the case of uncontrolled charging. Talking again about systemic innovation and how we have to look in a holistic way at all the dimension of the system. We have been looking at the system of California to see what are the innovation and what is the strategy they are implementing, as they are one of the most advanced examples worldwide of smart charging implementation. And I will not go through the whole list of innovation, but the point of this slide is just to show you that they are indeed looking and deploying electric vehicles on the road. They have a very good plan for charging infrastructure, as diverse as possible, also public charging, also home charging, fast charging. They're looking at a different location. And of course, digitalization and interoperability and connectivity, it's also a key element there. to connect all the charging points with the drivers. There are also they have working groups for cooperation of regulatory agencies. So we see a lot of cross cooperation between the power system agencies and the transport system agency in the region that enable the planning of the electrification, and also many pilot projects from the distribution system operators in California to manage better the EV load grid, the EV load, to defer grid updates, and also using EV as a resiliency solution, because there have been different extreme weather events that led to blackouts caused by wildfires lately. So EV battery could be a good backup system for these events, and they are also piloting these options. Also on the perfect, thank you very much. Also on the market designer regulation, they are introducing a lot of services that could help, and smart charging enablement in wholesale market constructs, and new business models, of course, are also key. Okay, here is just to show you the impact of all these innovations that are implemented in California, and you can see how the load becomes more flattened. The average load in red, it becomes more flattened with V2G overnight and overnight charge, so more controlled charging. And a lot of reducing in the greenhouse gases emission, a lot of reduces in estimated grid savings, and so on. I will not spend too much time, but I would like to send the same idea for smart electrification of heating and cooling. So as well, we need to look holistically to control better how we operate the heat pumps installed in people's home and in industry as well. And last but not least, the green hydrogen is key for the energy transition, especially for the sectors that for which a direct electrification technology is not available. So producing green hydrogen for renewable electricity and then using it as at long aviation haul, international shipping, in chemicals and refineries and steel. This is for the moment the only viable technology option for decarbonizing these hard to decarbonize sectors. And again, producing green hydrogen could pose a great burden of the power system, but doing it smart could facilitate and provide flexibility services to the system, but also defer investments. And here again, we are collecting a wealth of innovations that are emerging in this sector to show how to produce green hydrogen smartly. But again, I will not go more in depth. I would just like to conclude with the fact that the power system is transforming and the whole energy system is transforming. Previously, we had a system where the generation side was the one providing the most flexibility and following a mostly unelastic demand. But with all this innovation happenings and with the consumer having more power and with smart electrification of end-use sectors, this is changing, and a lot of flexibility can be unlocked on the demand side as well. That could also is key also for helping integrating higher share of renewables in the power system and ultimately decarbonizing the power system and the end-use sectors. This goes hand in hand. I will end with a few key messages from all my presentation, just to keep in mind some main ideas from these 20 minutes. First, power system is the backbone of the energy system. A renewable-based power system would ensure the decarbonization of end-use sectors as well, as I mentioned, but flexibility is key to integrate high share of renewables. We see three trends, innovation trends happening in the power system, becoming more decentralized, more digitalized, and more electrified from electrification of end-use sectors. But smart electrification of end-use sector is key for minimizing investments. And we have to think holistically. This is what we call in IRENA systemic innovation. Okay, thank you very much. This is all from me today. I leave you here a list of materials if you want to dig deeper into some of these topics, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent presentation on the innovation landscape for sector coupling in all segments, including technologies, business models, market design, and system operations. Thank you very much for that. Now we have about 5 more minutes to go. I received 2 questions from the audience. Okay, so let me forward these questions to the speakers. The first question is to Joo-hee Lee of Berry Words. This is a very simple question. Is the battery recycling center in Siem Reap or another province or country? Ms. Lee, can you answer to this question?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for your interest. So the battery recycling center will be located in Phnom Penh, actually, not Siem Reap. Yeah, so we're gonna construct a recycling center in Phnom Penh. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, this is quite a general question. I don't know who can answer to this question, but the question is there any opportunities for future collaboration with the ASEAN region, Southeast Asia region, like Indonesia? For your information, Indonesia has a huge renewable energy potential, more than 400 gigawatt. Can anybody answer to this question? This is quite a general question. Anybody? I don't know whether Korea Energy Agency is here. I understand that Korea Energy Agency is doing a lot of collaboration work with other countries, including Indonesia. They may have some scope to collaborate with Indonesia. Unfortunately, I cannot see them here. But anyway, for the interest of time, we have a couple of minutes. Let me now summarize the key messages from these presentations. It was very enlightening opportunity for me. I learned a lot from your presentations. A few key messages that I can take up is one, energy sector coupling can facilitate increased deployment of intermittent renewable energy. And it has a lot of merits. It will improve flexibility, security, reliability, and efficiency of energy supply system. Sector coupling is a cost-effective way of decarbonization. And this is the first message that I can hear from the presentation. And the second message is electrification of the end user side or demand side is one of the core strategies for decarbonizing the energy sector. The third message that I got I got from this workshop is cross-sector integration between electricity, gas, and heat can serve as an additional source of system flexibility of energy supply. And then another message is that we should be innovative in every segment, including technology, business models, market design, including legal, regulatory, and institutional framework, and system operation to take the energy sector coupling forward. The last message is that there's no such a thing that one size fits all business model as far as the sector coupling is concerned. So sector coupling should be applied in the context of a specific country. Like, for example, Dr. Lee mentioned about sector coupling in Germany. Their main goal of sector coupling is decarbonization. But in case of Korea, where the energy system has a different perspective. In Korea, energy sector focuses not only on decarbonization, but also energy security and flexibility. And also the level of development in each country will be different. As I mentioned, as mentioned before, some advanced countries like Korea, US, they're very advanced in terms of sector coupling with these innovative technologies. Previously, the communication in the energy system was one way from generation, transmission, distribution, and the users. But now, a two-way communication is possible. So this makes different business models of sector coupling. In developing countries, many of them are not yet up to that stage of development. So, as we have seen, in case of Cambodia, they start with this small thing, and also Mongolia, very similar. So, each country has to consider applying this sector coupling concept in context of their specific conditions. I think that's the message that I can summarize from this workshop. So with this, let me conclude this workshop by thanking all the participants for their attention and also the speakers for their excellent presentation. Thank you very much. This will end the workshop. Thank you.